meeting is being recorded.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Exhaustion Antidote 2. I'm so glad you're here, and thanks for being patient with me. I was trying to find the button to bring my picture back on, and I could not find it. I could only find unmute. So um, I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to begin by sharing my screen with you, and we're going to get started. And in this moment, I just want to invite you to take a moment to kind of settle into the space. Whatever you need to do that will help support you to be here and to be present with your body, I really want to encourage you to do that. So if that is bringing in a glass of water, if that is bringing in something that's cozy or warm or comfortable, I invite you to do that as well. I think probably the most important thing that we'll be doing right now in this time together during the Exhaustion Antidote is to really offer our nervous system something different than exhaustion, and to signal safety back into our body. So much of the time when we are experiencing exhaustion within our bodies, it feels so hard to come out of that loop. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. It feels so hard to come out of the loop. But when we can take just a small little step towards noticing anything that can help us to feel connected, or something that can help us to feel just a little bit more pleasant, then that is the little window, the little cracked window that we can notice something else can be true. So again, welcome to the Exhaustion Antidote. This is the second free workshop that I've offered. And I like to say it's a free workshop for the exhausted folks, because I think we can all we can all relate to this idea that exhaustion is it's very tangible, it's very present, and what can we do with that so that we're not constantly in this state of exhaustion and burnout. My name is Andrea Marisol Bayon, and I have such intention behind what I do, including in titles, right? What even is a title? But um, but I have such a fun relationship for me personally with changing words. Words have such deep and powerful meaning. And so the title that feels really resonant with me right now in this moment, this version of who I am, is intuitive healing catalyst. And the intuitive is really this idea that there is intuition, that there is innate knowing within me and the gifts that I have been that I have inherited, but also those that I have been developing and growing and expanding. And how I use that in healing practice is a very sort of unique way of starting something, of initiating something. And that's really where the term catalyst comes in. So an intuitive healing catalyst, from my perspective, is someone that begins the process of that innate knowing and how you get to healing, how you get to the space where you can feel so much better, where you can feel more whole and more aligned. I am a multicultural somatic healer. Somatic is body-centered. I am a speaker, a visionary who supports burned out givers in reclaiming their rest, their radiance, and their wholeness. And my work weaves nervous system wisdom and ritual medicine into healing spaces that are both sacred and deeply practical. I guide with my heart, and I invite others back to themselves through embodied liberatory care. So that's just a little bit about me. And as I mentioned before, words are so important to me, and they have such deep meaning. They also don't always encompass everything that we're experiencing, but I try my best to align or to connect words and meaningful words with the experience that I'm experiencing myself. So I wrote this little it's not exactly a poem, but just this sort of like proclamation of who I am, and I'd like to share that with you. I exist because of the strong women in my lineage. I love because the sacred heart within me yearns to always be in divine love. I am grounded because of the Tongva First Nations people who first were in right relationship with the earth and left an energetic legacy for how to continue to walk that path here within the life here. I give because my cells were programmed to care and take care, and it feels complete within me when I experience reciprocity, a balance of giving and receiving. I integrate because one of my life's deepest callings is to be bridge medicine, to take two seemingly opposite things and say, not only is there room here for both, but both can complete one another in a beautiful and embodied way. And in a very similar way, Marisol Wellness has deep, deep intention in the words and the meaning. Mar is the Spanish word for sea, this element of water, this idea of fluidity. And sol is the Spanish word for sun, this idea of fire and refining and heat. And not only is Marisol spelt differently, Marisol my middle name, it also within it has the context of these two very significant places where I have lived and where my body has experienced life. So I was born and raised in Arizona in the desert, a very hot, I was going to say humid. There's no humidity there. It's very dry. It's very dry. It's very hot. And the summers are really known for, like 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets to be really, really just like a time of refining, right? And being so present, being so face to face with the element of fire. And so that's the soul part. And Mar, the water, the sea, is where I currently reside in California. And it's such a different aspect. It's such a different element to have water, right? This idea of fluidity and sort of moving with being able to adjust and allow for uh, almost like receiving, right? There's this ability to flow throughout. And so when you put those together, they really sort of embody and encompass these two seemingly different ideas, the idea of flowing and of water, and this sort of more feminine element, and sun and fire, this more masculine element. So not only are they the two places that I have lived in this lifetime, they're also in my astrology. these these two signs are in my astrology. And so Mod, or water, my moon sign is Pisces, and my sun sign is Aries, so the sign of fire, right? So there's so much deep intention and meaning even just within the words, really having this integration of both. And Body Soul Wellness is really here to guide you towards that idea that you can also bring in the medicine that you need most by bridging and making whole all of the pieces of you. So I want to ask you a question for you to consider. I want to invite you into this space and say, why are you here? Really, what are you hoping to receive from our time together? But actually, even more than that, even deeper than that, what brought you here to begin with? It's very likely that you have experienced or are currently experiencing burnout or exhaustion. I can't imagine why you would show up to a free workshop and spend your time and energy here if you weren't feeling exhausted, right? And there's so many world events going on. Certainly there is an overwhelming amount here in the United States presently in this current time. And when we walk through life and we are experiencing and we are noticing all that is happening out there, as well as all that is happening in here, it can be really overwhelming, right? And so I really want to invite you to consider what are some of those things, if you know, maybe you don't know, but what are some of those things that have led you to being here in this space? And that can be like, oh, this really resonated. I found you on Instagram or something like that. But it can also be, I feel a deep emptiness within me. I'm having a hard time moving forward or finding clarity, or I haven't experienced anything outside of exhaustion in a very long time. If any of those is you, my hope is that today you will really begin to see that there are tools that you can utilize, really small, really tangible tools that you can utilize to better serve your nervous system and to help you move out of burnout, to move out of exhaustion. That's the idea behind the antidote, right? Is to allow our bodies to find the healing that it needs so that we're no longer experiencing, in this case, exhaustion. So when I was looking up statistics on burnout, to say that it was mind-blowing in my experience is quite an understatement. I have heard about, and I have personally experienced burnout at a few times in my life, and I didn't call it burnout. Maybe I didn't know that it was burnout because there wasn't a lot of support for me in those moments. But I think as I was even just researching this recently, it was so startling to me to realize that the default really is burnout. The default is really what we have been accustomed to. And so if that is our baseline, if our baseline is emptiness, no energy, struggling to continue, where do we have to go from there? If that is our baseline, if that is accepted as default. The International Classification of Diseases, isn't that wild? Defines burnout as a syndrome resulting from chronic stress that has not been successfully managed. So a syndrome is created, an illness is created, and it results from chronic or constant or perpetual stress that has not been successfully managed. So no wonder this is becoming the default. In one of the studies I read, in 2025, this year, 66% of employees cited job burnout, and the younger generations were experiencing it at even higher rates than those that are older. I think the statistic was something like between 18 and 30 years old, there was something like 80% of workers were sharing that they have or had experienced burnout. So that tells me one of two things. That tells me that either they're being more honest than some of the older folks are, and we were conditioned and brought up in a different time. So they're either being more truthful about what is, or there is just this perpetual grind culture that some of the younger generations, they're not putting up with anymore. And maybe that's to benefit us all, really. Women are more likely to experience burnout than men. I'm sure that's no surprise to anybody. And women in leadership positions report particularly high rates of burnout. Burnout impacts mental health significantly. I have seen that as somebody who supports folks through their mental health journey. I have seen that burnout really, really impacts a person's mental health and physical health. And that includes an increase in stress, anxiety, and depression. So some of the factors that contribute to burnout, some of the things that they tell us, right, that we can go out and research these things. Some of the factors that contribute to burnout are long hours, poor work-life balance, a lack of resources, and a lack of support. What I have personally seen are when people, particularly people who care for others, or people who work in the human profession, those that work with other humans and they work towards helping to support, I call them givers. When people work in those positions, or maybe even personally, if you're caregiving for a loved one or for a child that has special needs, what I have found are factors that contribute to burnout are absorbing energy from others and not releasing it. So when we receive energy from those that we're caring for, and we don't release that energy, then that contributes to burnout. Also, not knowing how to work within your nervous system is oftentimes one way that I have witnessed that people just aren't quite sure how to move the energy out. How do I get rid of this burnout? How do I stop thinking about this thing or thinking about this person with this really difficult circumstance? I often see gaslighting themselves, right? People often say like, oh, I should know better, or I teach, this is particularly true in the mental health space or in caregiving. It's I have these skills. This is what I teach to my clients or those that I support. I should know how to do this, right? And so we gaslight ourselves. Also minimizing the problem. I think for myself, in the beginning, when I was experiencing burnout, I didn't call it burnout, in part because I didn't have a lot of education around it at that time, but I think also because I, I, it was an ego thing. I didn't want to believe that I was burnt out because what would that mean about me? I would make it mean something horrible about myself, like I wasn't good enough, or um, how at the time I was only a therapist. And so, or I only worked in the capacity of therapy. And so, if I couldn't even take care of myself, what would that mean about how I care for others? And so, so I tried to minimize the problem, right? Oh, I'm just tired. Oh, I'm just exhausted. Like, the work is hard or the stories are challenging, which all of those things are true. But what would it be? What would it have been like if I had called burnout, right? Or even numbing your body's warning signs. Um, I my first profession was actually teaching. I used to be a choir teacher in high school, and I was very young. I was in my early 20s and teaching high school students who some of them were only 4 years younger than me, 4 or 5 years younger than me. And so there was a lot of stress that I was holding on to. And I remember starting to build community around happy hour with other teachers, which inherently is not a bad thing, right? Happy hour when you go out to a restaurant and you drink yourself into oblivion, right? So there can be boundaries. I could have put boundaries in place to protect myself and to release the amount that I needed to release and to find community in the way that I needed to find community. But for me, there were no boundaries around the time of happy hour because it felt like the only place that I had to just release, right? And that within itself, that numbing has its own repercussions. It has its own sort of consequences. So um, yeah, so a lot of these things I have found in my work with other folks and in my own life, also not feeling emotionally supported, which was kind of, what I talked about in the happy hour example. When someone doesn't feel emotionally supported or they don't have those people, those community members, those friends, those relationships to rely on, it can be so challenging and you can feel like you're doing things alone. And finally, having the nervous system get stuck in a sympathetic mode. So, a sympathetic mode is this space of fight, flight, freeze, and what I like to call appease, what some people call fawn. And when we get stuck in a stress response, our brain is turning off all of the things that it views as not necessary, right? Not necessary for survival. So, artwork and humanities and looking outside and enjoying and taking an intentional drink of water, right? All of those things, the brain says, I don't need to think about that. I don't need to put those things on my energy to-do list, right? And so it just cuts them out altogether. So getting stuck in that sympathetic mode can be really tricky to get out of. But I want to share an intention that I have with you for today. I really want to offer a space or offer a practice where you can experience full access to your brain, to be able to step out of exhaustion quickly and into a life of brilliance. And I know that you can do it because you already have the mechanism built within you, right? All of us humans, with probably very, very few exceptions, unless someone has had um, like very traumatic damage done to their nervous system, all of us have a nervous system that we can work with. And even if you've had trauma to your nervous system, there are still ways that you can work with it. But what I want for you is to be able to access your full brain so that rather than staying in that sort of loop of fight, flight, freeze, instead of staying there, I want to invite you to venture out into other areas of your brain. Can we turn those parts on and access those parts so that you can see there's something else there and something that you can have access to? Um, as I was looking up statistics, and something that is often at the top of my mind is how the system plays into our being. How does our current structure, as far as our economy and our social structures and everything that we have set up within society and within each of our individual cultures, I'm always curious about how does that impact our being, how we show up in the world, how we live. And the reality is our structures that are currently set up and in place, those systems were designed by exploited labor, right? Those systems were developed and built off of the exploitation of other human beings. And so, of course, the goal of those systems would be that you stay exhausted. For you to be exhausted is the goal of these systems that we have developed, that we have designed. And it's unfortunate that the health and well-being of the human that works within these systems is not the top priority. However, knowing that, can we operate in a different way? Can we operate as intentional creatures, as intentional beings, and say, I want it to be different. I want my sense of being to be different. And working within the nervous system is one of the most practical and most feasible experiences that I have experienced in my own life and in those that I support and those around me, to getting to that place. I'm going to take a drink of water, and if that is helpful for you too, I would actually invite you to do that. I always have water nearby me, and I love water, but also it's a really helpful nervous system reset tool. So if you have water close by, let's just take a little pause right here just to notice what it's like to take an intentional drink of water. I'm sorry, my screen is blurred. So it looks like I have nothing. I have a green screen right here, but what I want to invite you to do is to first just notice what the water vessel is like for you. Maybe you have a glass like me. Maybe you have a metal water bottle. Maybe you have a plastic cup or something else. And I want to invite you just to notice the connection that you can have with it. Maybe you can notice the temperature and really just sense into it. Giving our nervous system this time just to notice sends those signals already just by noticing. It sends those signals of safety back into our nervous system, back into that electrical system, so that we can sense, okay, so that we can notice, it's okay to connect here. It's okay to breathe. I feel safe enough to soften. And so now, if it feels comfortable to you, I want to invite you to take an intentional drink of water. And although it's hard to swallow slowly, I want to invite you to see how far you can follow that water back into your throat. Mhm. I'm even just noticing the coolness in my mouth where the water was and it is no longer, and I can still almost sense it. And so that can be a really helpful nervous system reset tool, just taking an intentional drink of water. And we'll talk a little bit more about some sensory tools and what potentially could be very helpful for you. Gotta love that water. So I want you to have full access to your brain, like all parts of your brain, especially the part that your brain thinks is not necessary for survival, because it can default to survival with very little energy. But this part in our frontal lobe right here is called our prefrontal cortex. This part is turned on when we feel settled. It's activated or lit up in a good way when we feel safe enough to access that part that makes decisions, that houses impulse control, and it's able to say, I see all of the information in front of me and I'm going to move forward like this. This is my clear step forward, right? So I want you to have all parts of your brain online and have access to all of those parts so that you can step out of the exhaustion and the state of exhaustion and the systems that exhaust us, and you can be more fully in your body. So I want to give you a little bit of just a real brief overview of what the nervous system is, just so you have an idea of how it functions and how you can really support yourself in your nervous system. So our nervous system is really this sort of like electrical system that runs all up and down our spine and ties into our brain and our brainstem over here, like right where your skull and your neck meet. And the electrical system, it sort of looks like, actually, I wonder if I have this plant in my office, and it's called a nerves plant. I'm going to try, I know it's so blurry. Let me see if I can unblur. Yes, I can. So this is a nerves plant. And if you can see it, there's lots of little veins that go through the leaves, right? If you get really close, you can see all of the veins that go throughout each leaf. And what I love about this plant, it's called a nerve plant, but it reminds me of how intricate the wiring is within our nervous system as well. And that's exactly what it looks like on the inside. There is this line that runs all down our spine, but then how it feathers off and connects to our organs and nerve endings and just so many areas in our body. It is so, for me, it feels so beautiful because there's just this beautiful, deep, and intricate connection with every part, right? And so it works on electricity. The system within us is really an electrical system. And so how an experience begins is we receive input from our senses. So our sight, our touch, our taste, our smell, and our hearing, all of those senses we receive through the nervous system. So when we were taking a drink of water, right, and you were noticing the connection that you have with the vessel, that's touch. You were receiving that input of touch, of the temperature perhaps, of the sensation, the feel of it as you took a drink of water. And maybe you were even looking at it, right? So incorporating and engaging all of our senses, that's the very first part of an experience. We receive information from our senses. And it's just that, it's just information, right? And so where it goes from there is the second place. The information electrically is it's transported into the brain, and the brain determines first if that sensory information is safe or not safe. So if something is safe, I don't know if you can hear my ducks in the background. we have baby ducks. I mean, they're not so baby anymore, but we have 5 baby ducks, and whenever they hear my voice, they start getting really loud. So so I hope that you can hear them because they're really sweet. So if that sensory information is in your brain and your brain says that is safe, then your nervous system will continue to go along the process towards integration and completion, right? So let's say you see this glass, I see this glass, and I see that there's water in it, and I can feel that the water is room temperature. It's not cold, it's not hot. And so my brain, or my nervous system takes that information, that sensory information, even before I drink it, and it travels up into my brain, and my brain says, that's probably safe to drink. So I'm going to complete the process through integrating by taking a drink of water and then being done, putting the glass down. That's completion, right? If my brain looks at this glass and it says, oop, that's not safe, right? Like if let's say I see the water boiling, it probably wouldn't be in this glass, but let's say it was a mug and the water was still boiling. It was really hot and it was handed to me, and I could still see the bubbles moving forward. That information, that sensory information, what I see and probably what I feel in the temperature would travel up to my brain, and my brain would say, I don't think that's safe. You're going to burn yourself. So then my body, probably not with hot water, but for something that's determined as not safe, my body would move into a survival response, right? So once your brain has determined whether something is safe or whether something is not safe, that determines how it goes about the rest of the experience based on how you can best survive. And that essentially is our nervous system. I hope it didn't sound too complex, because there are lots and lots of little parts to it, but that generally is all that there is. We receive information through our senses. We determine in our brain very quickly if something is safe or not. And then our body continues the process in the best way that it knows how to stay either alive or by enjoying. And so I want to invite you into a couple of activities. There we go. Everything is an invitation. So if there's anything in here that doesn't work for you or that doesn't feel comfortable or pleasant, I want to invite you not to do it, because the goal here is to offer your nervous system something that feels good. Your goal is really to offer something other than exhaustion, something other than pushing through. So I want to invite you to travel with me and notice what is drawing in your attention. You always have the choice to notice it or not. So please make sure that you are acting within your own autonomy and your own choice, and do what feels good for your body. So the first thing is a havening practice. And the havening practice really begins to bring your awareness to your senses and can send that message of safety back into your nervous system. The havening practice is, they say that if you do it for at least 2 minutes, that will help your nervous system to reset. So if you were feeling really activated for whatever reason, and you do the havening practice for 2 minutes, they say your nervous system will have an opportunity to kind of like power down and come back to a baseline of okay again. So the havening, if you want to join me, feel free. The havening practice that we're going to do today, there's two different ones, but the one that we're going to do today is noticing what it is to be in one hand while another hand is moving and making connection with that hand. So first, I'm just going to throw out a hand over there. So I'm going to say, bring your attention to your left hand, but make a movement with your right hand. And then we're going to shift attention into our right hand when I let you know. So feel free to apply as much or as little pressure as feels comfortable. And I want to invite you to take a slower pace than you might think. Although if you want to go faster, please do. You get to use your own discretion here. So bringing your attention to your left hand and bringing your right hand down your left arm. Notice what it is to be in your left hand. And continuing to bring your attention still to your left hand. Notice what it is to be in your left hand as you bring that left hand down the right arm. And then I want to invite you to switch. So now bringing your attention to your right hand as it travels down the left arm. And still having your attention on your right hand as your left hand travels down your right arm. And then bringing both hands with any amount of pressure that feels good to you. Notice first, we're going to bring our hands to stillness if that feels comfortable. Bringing your attention first to your left hand. Really notice what it is to be in the left hand. And then bringing your attention to your right hand. And really notice what it is to be in your right hand. So something I'm noticing, something that I'd like to reflect is it can feel very different to experience your awareness in one area versus another. And I think this is something that I often not forget, but like it always amazes me for whatever reason that my left side can feel so different than my right side. And neither one is right or wrong. Well, the right side is right, but like neither one of them is correct or not correct. And it's just noticing. For example, my right hand is particularly cold. I'm not sure if it's because it was holding my water but my right hand is cold and my left hand is not cold. Actually, it's kind of warm, which is funny because our body is one, right? And yet there's a different experience in both. And so what the havening practice does is it draws our attention to being present here and now. For me to notice that one hand is colder than another brings my attention to the present moment. And that allows our nervous system to reset. So something that might be helpful is the havening practice. I would encourage you to use that. It doesn't have to be exact. It's not, this isn't a thing of perfection. So if you forget if you're like, oh, was I supposed to bring my attention to the left or the right. It's not actually about that. It's about being able to shift your attention from one area of the body to another. So it technically may not be called the havening practice if you use the same type of practice in your feet, but it works the same, right? Can you bring your attention to one foot? You bring your attention to the left foot. And then later, can you shift your attention to your right foot? And maybe you have your feet kind of like pushed up against each other or connected in some way, right? Or not. Maybe you can push them up against a wall, or you can stand and notice what it is to kind of lean into one side and then the other, right? So it's just bringing your attention to your senses and to the present moment to just notice. So that's the havening practice. The ocular nerve reset, this is one of my favorites. An ocular nerve reset is pretty simple. All you have to do, I'm going to take off my glasses. All you have to do is keep your eyes open for the duration of this exercise. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep our eyes open. I'm going to show you on one side. Keep your eyes open while covering the other side with your hand so that you can close out the light, but your eyes are still open. So if you'd like to join me in this, if you're driving, please don't do this. We need you to have your vision. But if it's safe for you to do so, I'd love for you to join me in the ocular nerve reset. So keeping your eyes open the whole time, I want to invite you to gently bring your hands over your eyes, closing out the light as much as possible, still keeping your eyes open. Still keeping them open. And just taking a moment here to notice. Notice if your body begins to soften. And still with your eyes open. Maybe you can notice your breath as it begins to slow. And if it feels comfortable to do so, still with your eyes open, I would invite you just to begin to bring your attention to your inhale and your exhale. So keeping those eyes open and really noticing the breath. And taking one more deep breath and releasing it. Now, before you remove your hands, still with your eyes open, I want to invite you to look downward so that your eyelids are covering part of your eye, and we're going to invite in light very slowly. So looking downward with eyes still a little bit open, beginning to peel your palms off of your eyes, gently letting in light very slowly. Still looking downward. And then taking some time, again, still slowly, to begin to look up towards eye level. So your eyelids are slowly opening. And maybe looking to the left. And looking to the right. And looking up towards the ceiling or the sky. Looking down towards the ground. I want to invite you to look behind you in both directions. How does that feel? That's one of my favorite ones because, and it might not work for you, and that's okay because everybody's nervous system is different. But what I like about that one is that it really gives, for me in particular, because most of my work is online, having a screen in front of me, and these are actually screen glasses, having a screen in front of me really, really uses a lot of energy for my eyes, for my vision. And so allowing my eyes to take a pause, to take a reset is so, so beneficial. I find the days that I don't use this, oftentimes I get headaches and I'm just feeling kind of scattered and all over the place. So if that's helpful for you, if the ocular nerve reset is a useful tool to you, I hope that you'll try to use that and try to incorporate that in your day-to-day, because it can be really beneficial to allow your nervous system to kind of just settle and to soothe. So the last exercise that I wanted to walk you through is something that I have named the backpack release. So the ocular nerve reset is really this exercise that we, in that space of our brain saying, is this safe or is this not safe? Our brain can decide that something is safe if it actually is, right? That it is safe. And the ocular nerve reset can kind of rebalance where our threshold is for feeling safe. So in the space of this backpack release, this is the final point of an experience, right? It's that part where if our brain has decided that something is safe, then we move into action, into integration and completion. And this is, excuse me, this is the part my body is releasing right now. This is the part that I think so often we forget. We certainly haven't been trained or not conditioned. We haven't been trained or taught how to fully integrate, how to fully complete something and then release it. And so what happens is we're holding on to things, just like I mentioned in the beginning, that when we help and we care for others, oftentimes what happens is we receive energy or energy comes towards us, but then we don't let go of it. We don't release it or we don't fully metabolize it through. And when you think about, I know it's kind of like a example, but I often use the metaphor of a digestive system. And it's not really a metaphor. It's actually quite true that our emotions and the input that we receive and that works through our nervous system, all of that needs to be metabolized as well. All of it needs to be digested as well. And so when you think about taking a bite of an apple, right? You first take a bite and then you chew it and then you swallow it and then it travels down to your stomach and your stomach breaks it down. And then it travels down to your small intestine, I believe, first. And then the small intestine takes all of the nutrients that it needs and it takes the vitamins and the minerals and the water and all of the good things, right? It takes all of those things. And then it travels down to your large intestine and it breaks it down more. And it transforms through this whole process, taking the things that it needs and that it can be beneficial to it and moving through those things that it doesn't need, those things that um, it won't be useful, right? It's trying to move it all the way out. What happens in an experience of stress oftentimes is that metabolization process, that digestive process stops. It's like somebody put a halt on it, right? So let's say you're chewing your apple and you swallowed it, and then you see a car accident happen in front of you. Your body likely will not continue on in the digestive process. It probably will later, but in that moment, your body is not using its energy towards digestion because it's not safe. It's just witnessed something major, a major stressful event. And so what happens is within our emotions and our nervous system, when that process of digestion is interrupted, our body goes, I'm going to migrate this over here and I'm going to save it for later. And I'm hopefully going to get an opportunity to bring that back up to the surface so that I can fully digest it through. And so we become these human backpacks full of things that haven't quite gotten to the end process of digestion. And so what I want to walk you through right now is this visual imagery that you can use for yourself, and you can alter it or tailor it to however it would be helpful for you. But I want to give this imagery to you so that you can imagine and it can support your moving all the way through, moving that energy all the way through so that you don't have all of these things in your backpack. So here is the exercise. I want to invite you to imagine that you have a backpack on. You have your 2 straps, and this backpack is your favorite backpack. It's a certain size. It doesn't go any farther than the width of your back and the height and depth of your back. The depth, you have a depth of your back. It doesn't go beyond your physical body, okay? It is your favorite color. Maybe it's your favorite design. Maybe you have some beautiful saying or picture, or it's the design exactly that you would have wanted for it, and it's empty. Now I want to invite you to notice that somebody comes along your path. You're just standing here and somebody walks by and they stand in front of you and they tell you something. Let's say it was a really difficult morning for them, and they hand you an object, and it's a weight. It's a weighted object. And they say, here, put this in your backpack. And you say, okay. So you reach back and you put it in your backpack and you let it go. And this person walks off, and you still have their weight in your backpack. Then the second person comes by. They stand in front of you and they share something that they're struggling with. And you care for this person very much. And so they hand you with both hands a weight, and it's even heavier than the first one. And you say, don't worry, I'll pick it up. I'll hold it. And so you pick it up from them, you take it from them, and you place it in your backpack, and you can feel the weight of it. And the person walks on by. And you feel the weight of those 2 weights. And then a third person comes in. And this person is one of your closest relationships. Maybe that's a partner. Maybe that's a child. Maybe that's someone from your family. And they have 3 weights, all of them heavier than the first 2. And they share with you their experience. And you say, it's okay, I can take it. There's still room in my backpack. And so you take one at a time, all 3 of the weights from this person that you love, and you place them in your backpack, and you feel the weight. And they walk on by. And the day is done. And you have a full backpack. Your shoulders are hurting. Your neck is hurting. Your back feels like it can hardly hold up the weight. What I want to invite you to notice is that you can begin to release the weight. So go find a spot where you can sit down and take off your backpack 1 strap at a time. Place it down next to you, or actually let's place it in front of you. And I want to invite you to reach in and to grab the weight of the first person that came across. And I want to invite you to notice that you can place it down on the ground and you can release that out of your backpack and see it there on the ground. See that you don't need to carry it. And perhaps taking a deep breath in and out. And when you're ready, I want to invite you to go back in your backpack and reach in for another weight. Looking at it, seeing how heavy it is, and placing it down outside of your backpack on the floor, on the ground. And just notice it. Notice that it doesn't have to be in your backpack anymore. Even as I'm saying that, I notice in my own body a softening, a release. And this is just a guided imagery. So I want you to go back in your backpack, and there are 3 more weights. And I want to invite you to take one out at a time, placing it down on the ground. 1 and 2 and 3. Looking at all 3 of those weights from someone that you love very much. Noticing that they're no longer in your backpack. And notice your deep breath. Now I want to invite you to take your hands and to open the opening of your backpack and look in. Notice that it's empty. You have had the opportunity to fully move through all of the energy that was given to you. And you didn't have to chuck it at people. You didn't have to hand it to somebody else. You didn't have to blow through that stressful event or that trauma through somebody else's body. All you did was lay it there on the ground. I want to invite you to a similar type of practice whenever you're working with people or whenever you feel like you have taken on someone else's stuff, someone else's weight. And you visually imagine taking it out of your backpack. Maybe you need 2 hands. Maybe you need to kind of like, maybe you need a crane to lift it out, right? Whatever you need, imagine that support that you have. Not to place it in someone else's backpack and not to keep it in your own, but to just lay it down in front of you on the ground. And just notice how your body feels. Notice even in this moment what happens. And that image of releasing the weight that doesn't belong to you is fully digested through. It's fully metabolized through. I saw this really interesting Instagram reel of this guy who worked with water heaters, and he was opening a water heater, like the metal water heater, and he cleared out all of the insulation and all of that stuff, was vacuuming it. So you saw a clean slate, right? And when he fully got to the inside, I had no idea what I was going to find. When he fully got to the inside, you would not believe the amount of water residue that remained in that water heater. I mean, I'm talking like this amount of, I don't even know what it was, hard water deposits and surely toxins and stuff you don't want to drink, stuff you don't want on your skin, right? That's exactly what happens when we don't finish the full metabolization process and get that energy all the way out. Our body holds on to it. It holds on to the residue, thinking, oh, I'll do that later. But over time, what you get is a very heavy backpack. And it was never designed to stay within you. It was designed to be like the water systems within our homes, right? If you have water lines within your home, those water lines need to be kept clean in order to transfer and get rid of all of the water that needs to be given or let go. So can you be in practice of releasing and fully metabolizing all of the energy that is not yours and no longer needs to be on the inside? You can fully rest, reset, and start again, renewed, instead of with all of that gunk everywhere. And I think what's wild is that so many of our systems, just like our normal and natural systems, rely on this cyclical pattern of initiating something, starting something, and metabolizing it all the way through and releasing it so that we can start again. We're creating that space to start again. So can I invite you to really be in the practice of all three? Can you be more present with your sensation? Can you give your nervous system an opportunity to decide that something could potentially be safe? And then can you release it fully through so that you're not carrying that weight and that residue, that your water heater is fully cleaned and you have space for something more beautiful on the inside? So this idea of releasing, resetting, and returning, what if we saw this as just a metabolization process? What if there was no shame attached to it? What if there was no judgment that's like, oh, I should know, excuse me, I should know what to do. I'm better than this. I did it again. What if it wasn't that? What if it was just a metabolization process and we supported? And I think oftentimes what can be a little bit tricky is that we overlook the integration and completion step because we don't often bring our awareness to that release part, right? Oftentimes our digestive process is automatic. We don't think about it. We don't think, now I'm going to chew. Now I'm going to break down in my stomach. Now I'm going to move this all the way out. Right now I'm going to use the restroom. We don't think in that type of capacity, right? But with our nervous system and with emotions and energy, we can support that process so that we can fully move it through. And it will help our bodies so that it can move to a more automatic process anyway, which is what we want. So I want to invite you, and I know that we're running out of time, but I want to invite you to jot down this question and perhaps reflect on what are 2 or 3 ways that you can move in the current right now. Meaning this, when you are in the ocean and there are big waves, if you step further into the ocean so that the water is higher up on your body, it is much easier to go with the direction of the current, to walk towards, or walk with, I should say, walk with the current, or to, even if it feels comfortable enough, to float on the top of the water and allow the water to take you where it's going. It is much more difficult to stand in the water with the waves and move against the current. I'm sure you've seen lots of videos online with people who are like, boom, they're taken out by waves, right? Like it is a force to be reckoned with. And so When you stand in the water, are you choosing to, in the way that feels comfortable, move with the current? Or are you fighting against where the current is trying to take you? Neither is right or wrong. You can choose either. Either is a choice. It's just a choice. But perhaps something that could be a little bit easier on your nervous system is moving with the current. So, a couple of things to consider. If there are 2 or 3 ways that you could move with the current right now, what could that look like? What could that be? If some of those 2 or 3 ways that you could move with the current include going deeper in this nervous system work and becoming more present within yourself and within your body, I would love to work with you. There are lots of different ways that we can work together. But if this resonates with you, if you're tired of being exhausted and tired of standing with on your own 2 feet and just boom, wave after wave after wave hits you, I wonder if being supported would be helpful for you. So there are a couple of different options. We can work one-on-one if that feels like the most effective way that you can receive support right now. Oftentimes that is the way that accelerates your path towards moving to feeling resilient again, to feeling alive and embodied again. Because one-on-one sessions and one-on-one work really is tailored to your very unique nervous system and addresses the very specific things that you're looking for. But there's also another way that we can work together, and that is through community or group offerings. And what's so helpful about these are that we are designed as social creatures. And so it can be so powerful to come into a community of space holders, of heart-led humans, and to be held, to feel safe enough to float on that water, to feel like it's okay to show up as you are in your nervous system at that moment. No judgment, no judgment. So you don't have to do it alone. And that really is the point, right? The nervous system has these 3 sort of parts. There's not one part that is better than the other. They all work together. They all work together. And you don't have to do this alone. I would absolutely be honored to support you in whatever way feels good to you, feels most aligned. So a couple of different ways that we can connect and that I can support you. Something that's coming up really soon is the Resilient Reset. It's an 8-week community that helps you to eliminate burnout and restore your nervous system. And it's not through hustle, and it's not through force, and it's not through coming up, getting crashed, getting those waves crashed on you again and again and again. It is moving with the current in small, tangible steps in a way that feels like softening in your body. So that's coming up really soon. Stay tuned. I'm going to give you all the details about that coming up pretty soon. And then also there's one-on-one support. If you live in California and therapy feels like the next best step for you, I would love to support you in that way. There is a little bit different of a practice that I use. I use a somatic practice, so it's all body centered and it's very integrative. So it's not solely talk therapy. There's a little bit of talking, but most of what we do in therapy is holistic and it works within our nervous system in the order that we receive and experience our senses, then our brain, our mind, and then our spirit and our heart, where meaning making happens and we move the thing all the way through. So if that feels like it would be helpful for you, feel free to reach out. If you don't live in California and you would like to receive one-on-one support, I also offer coaching. And that looks a little bit different than the sort of structure of therapy, but it continues to be a very holistic practice and way of support so that you get exactly what your nervous system needs and that you feel successful in that. And then I would love for you to stay connected. Reach out to me on social media. I have an email newsletter that I would love to connect with you in. I also have a podcast called My Own Way Podcast, and that is on my website. So feel free to check it out there. And then also, if there are any speaking opportunities or a community that you'd like for me to come in and share with, I love offering experiences. Oftentimes, I call workshops or webinars experiences when they're within a particular community context, because what we really want is the experience. We don't want to be talked at. We don't want to be like, we want to feel the thing. We want to experience the thing. And I absolutely love offering experiences in the way of a speaking opportunity. So if that is something that you would like to connect with me on, please do. My contact information is all here. You can reach out to me on my website. You can reach out to me over email, or honestly, you can send me a DM on Instagram, on LinkedIn, wherever you can find me, I will be there and I would be happy to answer you and any questions that you might have. So I hope this time was helpful for you. I would just invite you in these next couple of minutes, if you have an opportunity, to sort of shift your body in the space. We're going to move into completion, into integration. And I would invite you just to notice the movement that feels comfortable to you. Allowing our body to transition from all of this information, all of these experiences and these exercises, and fully digesting it through. Feel free to roll your shoulders, to move your neck. Can I invite you to take a nice deep breath with me and blow it out? And another deep breath in and exhale. And one more for good measure. Deep breath in and blow it out. Thank you so much again for joining me today for this Exhaustion Antidote Part 2. I look forward to connecting with you, and take good care.